All right, we'll call the meeting to order, 5 p.m. This is the first meeting of March. Welcome everyone, 3 trustees, fiscal officer, road administrator, zoning chief, and police chief. Or police chief, fire chief. You got a demotion, didn't you? We have 2 sets of minutes before us this evening, one for February 20th. I'd entertain a motion to adopt those minutes.
Also move.
I will second that.
Moved and second. Any further discussion regarding those? There's a very small addition.
Correction, addition, thank you.
What did I miss?
I just added, the salary adjustment was in order for the increased responsibility due to the addition of Bath Township. I think just the word addition of Bath Township, I put in
Or something.
something. So may we vote, please?
Sure. Mr. Mutcher?
Yes.
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Then we have the minutes of the special meeting of February 27th, 2019. Is there a motion?
I move adoption of, regretfully, I move adoption of those minutes.
Is there a second?
Can I
Oh,
second
you
it?
can't
Wasn't
second,
there.
I will second that. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, may we vote, please?
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher?
Yes. I now entertain a motion to approve payment of bills in the amount of $31,252.50. Broken down, general fund, $4,802.35. Fire fund, $15,797.26. Cemetery, $657.20. EMS billing, $6,591.81. Road and Bridge, $3,403.89. Capital project fund, 0. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding payment of these accounts? Hearing none, may we vote, please?
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher?
Yes. Before we go to correspondence, I think we'll open the public hearing regarding zoning changes before us this evening. We'll open it at 5:05. We'll let it run for a little while. We'll take discussion of that under the zoning.
Okay, do you want me to, I have statements from the zoning commission that they wanted submitted at the public hearing. They're all still at work with the new 5 o'clock schedule. They couldn't get here. Do you want those read now or when we have the discussion?
Let's do it when we have the discussion. Correspondence, I didn't bring it, so we'll just basically refer to the agenda. We have a invitation to a dementia-friendly celebration breakfast. We have the meeting announcements for the annual DAC Council, that's the Health Department annual meeting that I'm the representative for on March 19th, I believe it is. League of Women Voters newsletter, information for the Center of Medicare and Medicaid, growing local solar, community-based tools. That was an MVRPC project, I believe. Growing green regenerative soil and local agricultural economics. I believe that's from
Community
Community
Solutions.
Solutions, right? Yeah. Email from MVRP about the National Association of Regional Councils meeting, which I may attend. A meeting announcement for Green County MVRP. This is Green Council, that's what threw me. MVRPC members that we had with, hosted by Tom Kugler last week, I think it was, on Monday. Executive Director's update, Ohio Fuel Texas Sustainability Roundtable, so announcement, threw all those together. Ohio Cemetery Association Conference agenda, notice from the auditors, completion requirements for filing annual financial reports for both Miami Township and Clifton Cemetery. Email from RPCC Executive Committee about clarification on long-range comprehensive plan. This is for the county and preparing for the 2000 census.
Oops. Oh, it said 2010.
Oh, 2010.
Should be, yeah,
Yeah.
been there, done that.
Bobcat pricing, which we've gone over, well, we went over that last meeting, because that's where we were there. 229, can't be 229, minutes meeting submitted by MSA, edited 227. Letter from RPC, retired RPCC Director Ken LeBlanc, which came with his beautiful calendar that we have up on the wall. A letter from the Wyeth Chamber of Commerce, and a very lovely thank you note from all members of Home Inc. thanking us for Mark's letter to the editor in support of the senior housing project located at 1001 and a half Xenia Avenue. I don't know what that address would be.
And then it'd be on Herman or Marshall.
Right. Any further correspondence in or out for the period?
There's one more on the back page.
Two more, please. Oh,
There's one
I just
more.
turned to the back page and here we are. This is Margaret's email about the.
It's a response.
A response
Yeah.
to a request for purchasing property, purchasing interment rights in the natural burial cemetery. Okay, hearing no further correspondence, we'll go to the fire department.
All right. Since the last meeting of the board, what was it, 12 days ago, I think? We've had 28 EMS incidents, which,
Only about 7 days ago.
yeah, it seems like it was really soon.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it was, we had 28 EMS incidents, and I think half of those happened Friday and Saturday.
Is that right?
13 fire, and we've done 2 fire safety inspections. Bath Township slowed down this month. They were at 12 in January. February we only had 6. That still averages out to 9 per month. So, 3 fire incidents and 3 medical incidents. I looked over the budget, excuse me, budget recommendations, and only have a few suggestions instead of recommendations. OPF, which is our pension fund, it was suggested to lower that because we only spent $55,000 last year instead of the $90,000 that was appropriated. The reason we spent so much less was that Alex and Joe, who came into the pension, started at the end of May. So we were missing 6 months of, well, 5.5 months of pension contributions for them, so. I will
It might not be quite that high, but.
It probably won't be quite that high, but it's always tough with the, because we have to pay it on their overtime as well, so. Actually, that was factored in. I'll recalculate that and make sure that's the number that we used, we came up with last year using the calculator that Alex had created. So we'll come up with a firm number for that one. Well, a firm number. Fire training, we didn't spend that much last year, actually, more than I thought. So, but we had 8,000, we spent 6,900, so it's suggested drop it by 1,000 to 7,000. We've already spent 6,000 due to a higher contribution on this forcible entry door. We thought City of Township would pay more. So if we kept it 8,000, at least have 2,000 bucks to send someone for training or something.
Oh, you do have a training line, services line and EMS billing as well.
Right, but we can't spend the EMS billing on fire training,
Oh, right.
unfortunately, so. We're looking at possibly doing a fire certification class this spring, but hopefully I think that'll still be covered by the workers' compensation, right? And then operating supplies and EMS, I suggested drop from 71 to 56. I'd be a little more comfortable at 65, just because I'm not sure, this will be our first full year with our own funding of all our medications and everything like that, so I'm not exactly sure how much money that's gonna be.
We didn't do a full year last year?
No, I think we started in, I think May was like the banner month for us. And it may end up, it may end up lower than that.
Okay.
With Alex is in charge of the supplies, and, I think we know Alex, he's pretty good with that stuff, so. Other than that, everything else looked good. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
That is, you're reacting not just to the original proposal, but to Chris's suggested changes.
Yes. Yes, sir. I forgot that one item. As you recall, several meetings ago, a member of the public, Fairborn resident, was here to express a concern about an interaction that she had had, social media with the assistant chief. And you need to look into it, so I did such a thing. And I, when we went through our policy, our social media policy, there are no express violations of the policy there. He never identified himself as a department member or employee. Obviously, many people in the community know him as such. So I did discuss the situation with him and advised him that it was ill-advised, and that we should really not engage with anybody on social media in any kind of way, no matter how, obviously you're entitled to your opinion, but when we get to our level, and he understood that, so. I think it was more frustration than anything on his part, but, so yeah, we discussed it. I don't find any violation of policy for any reason for discipline on that. She also expressed a concern that, that interaction might keep people from doing public records requests. And I have not seen that in my almost 25 years here. I think I've had one public records request prior to this year. And I think I've had 10 since then. Not just from her, from other people as well, so I think that people are still happy to to file those public records requests, and we have, I have diligently worked to answer all those within a reasonable amount of time as prescribed by ORC, so, I understand, I certainly understand her concern, but I don't think that's a symptom of a massive problem here, and I think it.
There was a second half, or second part, I should say, of that comment that was made that night about.
A potentially toxic
Yeah.
culture here at the fire department.
Could you, or did you look into that?
Yeah, I mean, I did look into that. I've spoken with members about that. I think certainly we did have I don't know if toxic's the right term, but, we had a certain employee in the past who's no longer with us, who did, contribute to, I guess, what could we call it, toxic atmosphere at times. He's resigned since then. Members here, the ones I spoke with didn't seem to feel that there was any issue, other than the normal stuff that goes on in the fire station. People discuss things, they talk about things, they joke about things.
Let's say in the last 5 or 10 years, how many members, either paid or volunteer, have come to you personally and made complaints or accusations or any kind of?
I would say, just off the cuff, in the last 5 to 10 years, I've had maybe a half dozen complaints about other members, from member to member, that we've dealt with either, through policy, with discipline, or just through mediation type situations and discussing.
Okay, let's narrow that down then. How many complaints in the last 5 or 10 years have you had for your officers in the department?
There were several concerning the one officer who's no longer here,
Mhm.
and those were all dealt with. He's not here anymore, so that helped part of that problem. In the last 5 years, I have received no specific complaints from members regarding officers and department supervisors. We've had, at least on my end, I've had no specific complaints about staff from the public or from hospital personnel. Certainly no complaints about patient care and the quality of care that's provided. One of the things that we are planning to do this year, as the department has really had a big turnover, and we have a lot of younger faces on the department. One of the things we've talked about, myself, the assistant chief and lieutenant airs, is kind of surveying members, doing a more anonymous kind of formal type survey to see what people's thoughts are and, what things they'd like to see change and that kind of stuff. It's been a long time since we've done that. And it's always a good thing, just to see what the culture and climate is here in the department. But I certainly do not believe that, people's personal feelings aside, everyone here is a professional and is able to provide the level of care even if they want it.
Do you still get the average amount of compliments that you had received over the past, you know, cards and letters and things like that?
Yeah, certainly, I don't think I've seen any kind of decrease in that. People are very appreciative of the service that we provide, both here and in our new territory. You know, most of those compliments are usually passed on to the crew right then and there by the patient or their family. And again, I just don't see, I see this as an isolated incident, which has probably triggered a lot more. But I don't feel there's any massive cause for concern. We have some kind of toxic underbelly of our fire department that's out there.
Do you have any firsthand experience you'd like to relate about the quality of service and provided?
Except to say that I think it's been very good, and thorough and well organized, and I mean, having been a patient myself repeatedly, it's been great.
Is that why you keep repeating?
Those frequent
Well-
flyers, you know, you can't get rid of them.
Well, we started a free beverage service
Oh.
now, so.
Well, I
Oh,
know
that's the extra $100 on that ambulance cost, the beverage cups.
Yeah.
Well, good. Yeah, I mean, I don't, you know, I'm very confident, regardless of relationships I may have with other members of the fire department, personally and otherwise, that everyone here, particularly those providing EMS as EMTs and paramedics, is a professional, knows what they're doing and does it very well.
Yeah.
You know, we do receive compliments from our medical director and from hospital staff on a regular basis, which is always a good thing. You know, sometimes patients may not be happy with what's happening. We have patients who don't want to go to the hospital but have to, or patients who may be under the influence, you know, that type of thing. But I would say the vast majority of our people have a positive impact on patients and their families. And the community should be very proud of the service that's provided here by our paid and volunteer staff, so.
I agree wholeheartedly. Before we move on, Don, is there anything you'd like to,
No?
look into that? Okay, anything else, Mark?
No.
Anything else about that?
No, I mean, you know, we'll just work to make sure that people, you know, that our
So you want to
social,
let Carol in?
I am locked into
Oh, did you?
our social media policy, you know, was new last year, and, you know, it's a tightrope, kind of. You don't wanna restrict people's rights, but also as employees, obviously, they have to kind of watch their P's and Q's, to use a 1950s term. But, I mean, I think overall, people will comply with it, and this was an isolated incident, and, will not happen again. You know, and again, as I said, there's no reason at this point to believe that we have any kind of similar crisis underneath the surface.
Okay, so moving along, how are you doing in your filling supervisory role, the new supervisory roles that you spoke of last year?
I met last week, well, Lieutenant Ayers and I met last week with the 8 candidates. They have their written exam is next week, and then we'll move into the tabletop assessments following that, and then planning interviews. And then we'll appoint, well, recommend to you of those people who apply. So we're looking at filling 2 to 3 positions. So, as I said to them, all 8 of them are actually really good candidates. All have their strengths that would be good, so that anyone who doesn't get the position hopefully won't run off and be angry. And then in the future, I mean, there would be a pool to put, you know, to select from for future appointments, so.
Okay, you had mentioned a little while back that you had, was it 2 applications for the for the open positions?
Yes.
Department?
Yeah, we have, we just got the second one in today. So the reference has been checked on the first guy, and we're just waiting to call back for get an interview scheduled. The second guy's actually currently volunteering this, so I'm gonna check with him, so it's good to do that, so. But actually, when we have positions, as long as they both check out, we've got positions for both, because we have one 24-hour remaining, and then we have some of the 12-hour slots also open,
Mhm.
so.
You just have the 1 24-hour remaining?
Yeah, yeah, that's the one of Alex's shifts, he needs a 24-hour part.
And how many of those qualify for the signing bonus?
Two currently, Cassidy already has his first part, Josh has to get his first part. And then, whoever takes his third position will qualify for it as well, and that's got to be the sign-on bonus. As it currently exists. So yeah, I mean, I think it's helped people want to apply, but, part of our problem still is that our overall pay scale is low, so that kind of keeps people up. Plus, everyone in their local is still retiring at the same time, so we're competing against places. There are some places that pay less than we do, but they also fight fire on every other day basis. Younger guys seem to enjoy that a little more. And I can't promise them that, so.
Yeah.
I asked Richard to start setting fires for this.
I've got a good response for that. I think I probably will hold up on it.
So yeah, I hope, hopefully definitely by the next meeting, we'll have someone for you guys to fill that position.
Good.
And then last but not least, I'll be out of the country, March 19th through 27th. Assistant Chief Powell will be acting chief while I'm gone, so.
Okay. Anything else for the chief?
No? Which country are you heading for?
I am going to Switzerland. Should be a fun trip, but no, my dad lives there and he's having surgery, so. I'm going to be a good son. Assist him, and more importantly, my stepmother, through his surgery, because my father will more than likely be a very poor patient. So.
I'm surprised.
This is actually his first, he's 74 years old, it's his first ever.
Hospital
Hospital
encounter,
adventure, so, which, he's had a good run, but
Yeah.
he's got to have some back surgery, so. I figured in order to keep my dad and my stepmom married, I probably should go with them.
Don, anything else?
I'm interested, at some point in this kind of a review. You made a comment that our pay scale was lower than many of the departments in the area, and that some are even lower. I did get a phone call, someone saw the ad, said you couldn't believe how little we're paying. I said I'd find out how we compared.
I will.
So, just a chart showing other townships.
Yeah, Alex actually did a survey for us last year.
Well, just
Of comparable size.
getting a
agencies.
copy of that would.
Yeah, I will get that to you.
I'd like the copy
Can only be one, sorry.
I'll share mine.
When you talk about comparable size, the size of the department or the size of the population you cover, or?
The size of the, Alex looked at departments that were close in size in terms of run volume.
Run.
I mean, we can, he's not gonna.
Yeah, I just realized there were different ways to compare size.
I mean, Washington Township, for instance, they start their guys at almost $3 more an hour, but they also
Are constantly
go
working.
on 4,000 more calls than we do, so it's really comparable. Plus, they're serving Washington Township, so
Mm.
there's a lot of money there.
Okay, we'll move on to new firehouse report. Seems like been here before, but we did open public bids last Wednesday, and we had 7 bids, and the lowest bid was 21% over the bid estimate from the architect, which put it 11% over the maximum allowable bid, 10% being the maximum allowable. So we will need to do some value engineering, my least favorite phrase of all. And repost it for bids.
How
That's
much
just-
did the bids range? I mean, one was 21% over, what was the highest?
They were all except one very close to each
Oh,
other.
well, that's a good sign, so to
There was
speak.
one that was substantially over,
Hmm.
maybe closer to 800,000 over, was it 6.2?
It was 6.2, 6.3, something like that. for that
So-
one, yeah. Everyone else was.
So that's close to
Grouped
a
in the
million.
five.
They were grouped, so that sort of tells you that that's what it's gonna cost to build
Yeah.
that particular
So it
building,
was
doesn't it?
6 or 7 bidders?
7.
7. So that was good,
Yeah, you had a reasonable turnout.
Not quite.
but
So we'll plug along and see what options we have and make some decisions and get it redesigned and we'll rebid.
it's better than jail actually talked about. All 3 bids were.
Can't the
1.5 million
newspaper
over.
write something, you know, as a public plea to
Donate $1 million to us?
have their
To
name
make up the
put on a
difference?
building or something?
I mean, is it fair to say that the 21% was roughly $1 million?
No, the 21% was
Well, it's 5 million is the,
500, almost exactly 500,000. The bid was,
$2.5 million would be 500,000, be 20% over.
the minimum, the bid estimate was 5 million.
Yeah.
With the additional contingency, that was 525. The lowest came in at 5.5, 5.6.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, okay, so it was 250 roughly
Mhm.
over,
Mhm.
'cause
Over the maximum. No, it was,
My memory was that they were all over 7 million.
what?
no.
Oh, yeah, no, they were like grouped at 5.7 and then there was a one at 6.
My memory is pretty bad.
I'm not questioning your memory, but remember that's burned into my mind.
They were all 5.6 and 5.7,
Yeah, something like that.
and then 1.62. Not all, but 6 and 7, I believe. Anyway, they were high.
Well, that hardest listed.
Yeah. I mean, they're all in the next room, it's,
Yeah, I don't know, again, I thought it was steeper.
Yeah, they went from 5.6 to 6.9.
6.9.
That was the highest. And it was 5.6, 5.6, 5.7, 5.7, 5.7. They were in that range. Except for that one company that.
And the estimate for the cost was,
Well, the estimate was it was 5 million, let's call it 5 million even, and then you could go 10% above that.
right, which would be 5.5. And so we were only 100,000 over the, that's not very much. That's not,
No, that's not 10% over.
no,
No,
that's,
10% over the maximum.
no, it's 5.6 to 5.5 to 5.6 is 2% over.
Well, the general contract base bid from the architect, well, from the estimator, was 4.6.
Oh,
Plus the contingency,
Contingency.
plus the possibility of.
The 350.
So whatever that is. That was 5 something.
Okay, 4.6 to 5.6 would be about 20%.
Yeah.
But 4.6 wasn't the real minimum, because it was 4.6 plus the contingency, plus the 350 from the additional loan, as it were.
What's our contingency? I can't remember what that was.
It's like 285.
I was all over.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that was beyond our reach.
Well, it was beyond our reach, but, you know, it will be important to know what our goal to value engineer down to will be, so. Some of the options that they're looking at, and they haven't submitted them to us yet, is back to potentially changing the roof line, back to potentially, if you went back and read the estimate from the estimator that we all love, the change from the cement board, the, you know, expensive cement board rain screens, originally, to the brick. Brick was more expensive. Brick was 50,000 more than what they estimated the rain screens to come in at. Now, the rain screens came in $558,000 over what the estimate was, but the brick estimate was more than the rain screen. So who knows that? So you got that, you got the apparatus bay, you've got changing the doors in the glass doors, which I looked back on those numbers, and that was only 5,100 per door. So that would be, if we ended up going 4 doors, that would be 20,000. That's not a huge amount. Potentially changing the window size from the double wide, and I'm not sure what the height is. That may bring that down, but, you know, we haven't talked, I don't think we've talked about what we might be able to go from the 73-foot width of the apparatus bay, or depth, however you wanna look at that, down to 65, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna,
They have to give us some information
Yeah.
what other firehouses they're building,
Right.
what they're building.
because that's gonna be a one or the other thing, because we won't be able to fit the trucks we have in now if we lose a bay and shrink.
Mhm.
Because if we go to 4 bays, we're gonna have to double stack everything,
Mhm.
which ends up defeating the whole purpose of the truck we get. But, you know, gotta do what you gotta do, short of someone writes a check. Which then would get their name on the building.
Carol?
Okay, let's move along.
Yeah.
Daniel,
Yes, sir.
you're doing a lot of cemetery work, haven't you?
We've been very busy.
Yeah.
Since the last meeting, we've had 3 burials in Glen Forest.
Huh?
Mhm.
We must be dying to get in.
All within 20 feet of each other, it seems
Yeah,
like.
the whole distance is 100 foot. And
Uh-huh.
Very practical. I'm glad you've got it organized.
keep our work centralized on it. We've got some ashes pending, one in Clifton, a full burial. So, ashes, yeah. That's pretty much about what's going on. You, can you burn in spring?
I think so.
Would you burn that natural sometime?
Oh, yeah, that, sure. That was fun.
Would you
We're
not?
talking about a controlled burn of the grass.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that, I guess, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They could use it,
Yeah, certainly.
keep it on their agenda.
Oh, yeah, that one burned like a piece. It was great. That prairie grass, really.
It does look good.
Yeah, so,
It's
Yeah.
healthy,
okay.
it's growing healthy, so it'll burn off if I get a little healthier.
Oh, yeah, it's supposed to.
Yeah,
At least that's what they tell us.
it worked.
It worked last time,
Right.
so.
It was amazing how pure the grass was the year it was burned. Now, last year, there was a lot of weeds came back into it, and it wasn't nearly as nice looking.
There's some scrub trees coming up too, so once you burn, I'll go.
We'll get them, okay.
It's easier to get to them.
yeah,
once you burn
I'll
off.
check the weather and we'll get that scheduled in the next week or so. before
Well,
everything
whatever
starts.
works for you.
Well, as soon as the snow's off the ground.
Well, yeah, once we get rid of that, but, because otherwise, once it starts to green up, then,
Right, that's
then
why
it'll look like mange and it won't look good.
I'm curious if you could get to it or not.
Oh, got a great forecast, so, alright. Let's see what we
Yeah,
can
probably
do.
be busy somewhere else. But that's about all I had for that.
Okay.
You have anything to think of?
I know.
If we're going to the road department, plowing and salting has been our main activity mostly. And pothole repair, which we're in the middle of. So get back on that the rest of the week, I hope. Are you gonna move your tanker sometime?
It should, hopefully by Friday we'll have it here.
You give me some plates to put on, license plates, do they have to go on? Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, usually we just keep our license plates in the safe. In case, I don't know what the case.
Well, I haven't seen any others actually running a plate other than their number.
Right, yeah, we don't need to have.
So I've got it set there in the
We always
truck.
get them, and then we just put them, at least actually, we took them for the big trucks, just for the.
Well, Mike brought me a
Saturday.
set for that one, so
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you
well,
want them on, I'll put them on, if not,
No, because we'll just take them off.
well, they're in the cab,
Okay, cool,
I'll just leave them there.
sounds good.
That's what I had.
Okay, there's, Margaret, do you wanna, talk to Dan about the tree situation on High Road?
Oh, right, I got a phone call today from, a woman who lives on Corey Street, and, she expressed a concern regarding the property, the wooded area that is directly across the street from the entrance to Morse Bean. And with our last, big windstorm that we had a couple Sundays ago, a lot of trees have come down on that property. And she said a couple actually had, fallen into the road, but were clear, the road was
They
cleared.
cleaned it.
Cause she called the state highway people or something, and they said you need to contact the township. Anyway, so she's just concerned because there's just a lot of trees that are even like kind of uprooted, but haven't all the way
They're
fallen.
laying and.
They're, you know, they're just, you know, like another big blast of wind away from landing in the street.
Yeah, close.
Yeah, and well, bottom line, she's expressed concern about the property and all of the trees, and she and her husband frequently drive down, Hyde Road. And I, told her that I would certainly let the township know that she's called and has a concern, but I also told her that I believe it to be so that unless the tree actually falls in the road, it's not our responsibility to go onto a property and
No, we can't.
and remove any trees that are looking hazardous. But the minute they do fall on the street,
Then there are.
then we'll take care of it, but, you know, it's really, the property owner's,
I mean, if it's hanging over the road
responsibility.
and it's a threat, we can do it. And-
Right.
And the one you're talking about, I know.
you know the property,
Oh,
I'm sure.
absolutely. I
Mhm.
know the trees you're talking
Okay, well, I told her I would let you all know, and, what I thought was the case, and that I would call her back, let her know that we've been informed,
about.
and I
Duly notified.
duly notified, and I don't know the property owner, but
I do.
somebody might know who it is, and maybe want to mention to him that there's been a concern.
And you could tell her
Express.
that she could talk to the property owner.
Yeah, but she doesn't know who owns the property.
No, but
And I-
you
They-
could give that
they've
information
blown
as public, you
It's,
could
there-
tell
it's a
somebody.
dead tree that blew over and is laying in another tree.
Yeah.
It's not posing a real threat, but it's sooner or later, the dead tree's gonna.
It's
deteriorate
worrying
and come
her.
down.
Yeah, I know, I understand
Yeah.
the
And it's,
people worry.
it's a good concern,
Yeah,
but we know about it and it's on the list.
I'll let her know that we're keeping our eyes peeled, and she knows our phone number the minute one of those drops on the road.
But she feels like she's playing Russian roulette driving down the road.
Yeah, she just sees it as a hazard, you know, she can just see them, and she's like, eek. So, that's
Okay.
it,
All right.
okay, done,
I wanted to
I'll let her
everyone know that, we got a listing of all the political subdivisions in the state and how much the additional, gas tax would change, as a result of, if the 18-cent, tax was initiated, or instituted, I should say.
our revenues, our gas tax revenue
Yeah,
changed.
and we would potentially have an increase of about an additional $90,000 per year, which would effectively double, a little more than double the amount of gas tax that we receive now, which has gone down over the years. But that would be a nice
It'll
little
be useful.
usable amount. Yes, it would.
Nah.
You know, all at once, but I mean,
And it would
A little
go,
bit more done with a little extra.
it would go up a little each year with inflation, and it would be a guaranteed, well, not if anything's guaranteed in this world, but, it's set
It's
to be.
ongoing until,
Yeah, a 60-40 split, in the revenue, 60% to the state, 40% to the local jurisdictions, so.
Well, that's good news.
that would be-
Hasn't passed yet.
Well, but it's good news
If it does.
if it's potential, that'd be great.
The 90,000 is percent of increase?
no, that-
No, that's
absolute dollars.
That's actual dollars,
Okay.
$90,000.
And that's
It's about a-
designated for road repair, or is it designated for certain things?
Well, would be for the same uses that, I mean, it's for the road department, use. It's not specific for, like, it has to be for chip and seal or asphalt or whatever, but it is for the maintenance of roads.
Yeah. Cool, we're hopeful.
So cross your fingers,
Another new back.
call your state representative and state senator. I may fire off a little missive to those folks. I do it all. Back up a little, how progress on the annual report. That new website's got a little spot that says.
I saw that, it looks very nice.
Our annual report.
It should be here annually.
Since I've made all the corrections that you suggested, those have all been done.
I thought everything else, it looks very nice.
Thank you. I thought it looked very nice too. And thank you for your suggestions.
I'm sure that
Could I see
report's on there,
Could I see the roster of the 38 volunteers?
I thought I'd check, but I was like that. Or maybe putting it as 238, but I don't know. Or an indeterminate number of voters.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Anything else for road administrator? Tell them about any big potholes you've seen out there.
Please do.
Lots of them. Although you are filling potholes,
I am.
that's good.
Yeah.
So, we'll move to the fiscal officer for the meeting.
Here
Fiscal
I
officer
am.
Sloan.
Well, I have what I believe to be our last amendment of temporary appropriations resolution.
I believe it probably is.
Because hopefully we'll be into our permanent appropriations and that should, those amounts should stick for a while. Regardless, we have to go through this process and I can't just do it even though they're temporary. So it's resolution 2019-09. Whereas it is an ongoing process to determine appropriations for fiscal year 2019, and whereas it is required to submit all appropriation changes made to the 2019 budget to the county auditor. Now therefore, the trustees authorize the following changes to the temporary appropriations and instruct the fiscal officer to submit them to the county auditor. And in the general fund, I increased contracted services by $450. Road and bridge, I increased salaries by $410. They've been kind of busy this first couple months, eating away at our appropriation line. In the fire fund, I increased electricity by $600, water and sewer by $30 whopping dollars. The cemetery water usage went up. Well, anyway, and repairs and maintenance increased by $500. That's it.
What's the resolution number?
2019-09.
I'd entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2019-09.
I so move.
Mr. Hollister moves.
Second.
Mr. Crockett seconds. Any further discussion regarding that resolution? Hearing none, may we vote please?
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Mucher?
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Okay, that all being said, let's do our permanent appropriations. Want to discuss that? Can we discuss that? Are we good?
We good?
Well, it is kind of my dealio. I mean, I asked at the last meeting that we go ahead and try and review, make sure we got all our numbers lined up, and Dawn, I haven't received any other recommendations for changes other than what Colin has offered in his,
Have you factored those in, or you're just going to say.
I will put them in.
Uh-huh.
So, if there's no other contributions, Don, Mark?
Beyond what Chris has already suggested.
Okay, can we,
I'm-
we can, I mean, the resolution number would be 2019-10,
Okay.
and so we can go ahead and go there if you want. Or
Do we
wait
have
till
a
the next
copy?
meeting, to have the paper in front of you with all the numbers and the corrections.
No, but do we have a resolution? How-
No, but, you know, I could make one,
Well, you're telling me
immediately
that
following
there's-
the meeting.
But in terms of our complying with the auditor, next meeting would work?
It would work, so, if you wanna
Let's,
wait,
let's
look,
do that. I would like
that's
to,
fine with me.
Yeah.
rather
just
than
wanted-
going from the hand corrected.
Sure,
Yeah.
no problem, I
Rather
just
have it
wanted to,
printed
just
out.
wanted to see if there's any other comments or contributions, and see if there's none, I have the information that I need, and we'll create we'll do it in the next meeting.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right, anything else?
I don't think so, unless somebody has a question for me.
Anything else for the fiscal officer? Hearing none, we'll move to zoning.
Okay.
Richard, floor is yours.
Okay, I want to report that since the last time I saw you, I issued a permit for a new home out on Harbison Road near the Cedarville Township line, that neighborhood. So that's the activity. Had a conversation with Richard Dillon about his piece of property on Fairfield Pike. You know, he owns a piece of property that's runs between the Catholic cemetery and, well, the two residences that are there. And he actually sold off part of that property, the residential part of it, and the part that remains is the farm buildings and some acreage is still tilled. And he was wondering what he could do with that, and I said, it's zoned residential, so basically, you could build a house on it. He was looking at some kind of a commercial use for the existing structures, and I said, I didn't see any way that could happen. And that if he actually wanted to, even with working with the village, I doubt if he could do something commercial in that area. It'd be in the middle of surrounded by residential property, but that in order to have sewer and water, which is what you need for anything other than a single-family dwelling on that property, that you probably want to look at annexation with the village, as opposed to trying to do anything within the township zoning. Anyway, so that inquiry took place, and that basically took place because someone came to him and said, can I use those buildings for storage? Or buy the property and use the buildings for storage? And I said, if you're living there and you want to keep things in your building, that's one thing. If you want to operate a business where you're storing other people's goods, no. Do you want me then to go ahead with the zoning commission's recommendation? Okay. Well, as you know, the zoning commission has recommended deletion of 3 chapters from the zoning code. The 2 chapters for multifamily use, which, and I should check to make sure I say the right numbers. The R2 two-family residence district and the R3 multifamily residence district. Those are being recommended for removal for 2 reasons. 1, we don't have any of those districts. And 2, they both require sewer and water to develop, and which we also don't have. And thirdly, our comprehensive land use plan has said if you're going to do higher density development, it should be adjacent to the existing municipalities where there is sewer and water available, which in the case of Yellow Springs would mean annexation anyway, at least under current law. And then the 3rd chapter remove is the plan unit development chapter. And The primary reason for removing that chapter is, again, it's development. It's in contradiction to the comprehensive plan, which says we want to maintain agriculture in the township. But it also has internally various problems. We had someone try to abuse it, so to speak, to use it for a simple lot split. There's nothing in it that says that it can't be used for that. So it definitely needs repairs, and I could lay out scenarios of some other things that could be done we haven't asked for. And the chapter, the plan unit development chapter has been used once in the whole time that it's been here. And on one hand, you could say it was used successfully. Willowfield's development is a nice residential development. However, the area that was set aside under the PUD program, the open space, is a honeysuckle thicket, which isn't exactly what anybody anticipated in that process of having open space
Right.
as a result of PUDs. But let me read to you the zoning commission. Well, I'll just read. Brian Corey says, I have put together the following talking points related to why the zoning commission would like to eliminate the section on PUDs from the zoning resolution. Richard will be attending the meeting on March 4th at 5 p.m. and has offered to make remarks on our behalf along with any of us who can attend. Please read through my points and add your own for distribution to all. Okay, and so Brian says, reasons why the zoning commission wants to eliminate the PUD section from the resolution. PUDs are in conflict with the primary objectives of the Township Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The comprehensive plan strives to protect prime soils and preserve farmland from development. Well, the purpose of PUDs is to develop that land for non-agricultural use. The comprehensive plan strives to preserve the township rural feel, in quotations, in favor of lower density residential development with 3-acre lots, while PUDs encourage high density development. PUDs encourage higher density residential development that puts increased demand on township services, emergency road maintenance. PUDs would create disconnected popcorn development that would have an urban sprawl effect on our rural township. Undeveloped farmland acts as a buffer around the township's conservation areas. And then Linda Parsons added, also, we are already experiencing too much toxic chemical runoff into our watersheds without adding the added burden of additional runoff due to non-permeable surfaces, more streets, sidewalks, driveways. Traffic would increase, thereby creating more road upkeep, additional schools would eventually be necessary, etc. Hello, suburbia. My question is, why push to keep the PUD portion in the zoning code? Are developers putting pressure on the trustees? After all, considering the proximity of the township, I can understand the potential for some aggressive, slavering developers trying to sway opinion. So those are the comments directly from the zoning commission. Brian with his level-headed thoughts, and Linda with a little bit more punch. I can tell you that this decision, I will say that the elimination of the 2 multifamily residential districts did not take a lot of anguish, but the PUD chapter was read up one side and down the other and back and forth, and finally everybody sort of realized that, well, this isn't what we said we wanted to do. And while our comprehensive plan doesn't flat out say that planned unit development should be eliminated, it certainly does speak to the points that that kind of development is not what we're anticipating. That if you were to have a higher density development, as we say, it should be adjacent to the existing municipalities. The other part of it is that our PUD chapter is not just for residential development, it's for industrial development, for commercial development, other items which are totally inappropriate at the present time. So that's the reasons in a nutshell. I'm here to answer any other questions or concerns that you have as best I can. And I will tell you whether I'm answering them from my own head or I'm remembering what the discussion was that took place at the zoning commission. I'm more or less representing them tonight.
Don?
If, may I?
Certainly.
It seems to me there's an advantage in having an alternative if someone wants to, I mean, they have a road frontage. They're gonna continue farming inside, but they'll just develop the road strip. Be able to say that is, you know, following the 3 acres, 300-foot frontage. Be able to say, well, instead of all those driveways coming out on the road, and we'll allow you the equivalent number of lots on smaller lots, more compact, and then the other area has to stay open. But there's a lot of advantages in that, both for the developer and for maintaining farmland.
You still have to then build a road,
Yep.
okay? And the reason that the development that occurs in the township occurs the way it does is because no one is investing in building new roads. We have one residential development in the township that's not PUD, okay? Which is William and Mary Court, which was done with the 3-acre homes and a road, both, okay?
And no open space.
And no open space, okay, the open space is still around the houses. Our PUD says you still have to build at the same density, 1 house per 3 acres. You can push the houses closer together, and then you have this area of land which doesn't get used.
Then why are the zoning commission members, why are zoning commission members all so concerned about all this increased development when it's exactly the same development that would happen in the zone that the PUD would be
I don't think they're increased, that there's Linda sort of talks about it like it was a threat.
Brian also does.
But the development they're talking about is changing farmland into residences.
They control that, not us.
Yeah, and they're saying this is one, in line with the comprehensive plan
They
to
would
not
have to-
change
They
farmland
would
into
have-
residences.
They would have to rezone it to R1A or R1B.
No, we allow residences currently to be built in A1.
That's correct, but no higher density under a PUD than it is under A1.
That's right. But but in this case, it makes it easier in the
Well,
PUD
it
to build
doesn't-
more houses.
It doesn't.
Well-
You don't build more houses, you build exactly the
All
same
right,
number of houses.
all right. You have to build less road.
Okay.
You could use a
less road,
PUD
you
right
use less
now
land.
without building any road and put houses right down the road every 100 feet if you wanted to.
Exactly.
Well,
It
that's
just-
not exactly a good idea, is it?
Well, we don't have to approve it.
Okay, but
No,
you
do that.
shouldn't
It's a permitted
have
use.
situations
where you don't give some indication of what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable.
I guess I'm misunderstanding. Because if someone comes in and says, I want PUD,
Mhm.
we don't have to approve anything. We don't have to say, yes, you can have a PUD.
No, you don't have to,
And
but it would be
Seems-
very disingenuous if they met all the requirements and you said, we don't like it.
that's,
Well, we
my
have a lot of-
understanding is,
I mean,
is
are you
the one PUD plan that did go through,
Right?
there was lots of pushing back and forth.
I was
What
not
I'm-
here,
I'm
I was not
from a
involved with
distance.
the township government at that time.
The other thing is you made the assumption that the open space would not be farmed.
the open space, and I have yet to see a PUD where that has happened in any township.
Well, I,
Okay,
come on, I
the
can
other
give you
thing
some
is that
examples,
most
but you're-
residences don't actually, if they have the choice in the matter, want to be next to active farming.
Mhm.
And when you have a 3-acre parcel, your house can be fairly well removed from the land that's still around you, okay? But if you're down to a smaller lot, it has to be on the average of 1.5 acres, or a little less than that, to meet the set-aside requirements. Then there's no buffer with the agricultural land.
Then don't buy it.
Well,
That is,
okay.
to me, there is the public good of having more open space if there's no increase in
Okay.
the number of houses
We
built.
don't have a definition of open space, okay?
But
So I'll just
When
say
I look at
that's
this
one of the
PUD,
problems. But-
this does not look like.
But what we
A
have
good-
in our township is open space.
Mhm.
Most people would refer to what we have as open space, all right? And every time you build a house, no matter how you build it, you're taking some of that away,
Mhm.
period.
Question is how much?
Mark?
My question was about water drainage. If you use smaller lots, that is houses that are closer together, would you still have the same soil analysis?
We don't, in Miami Township, have any runoff regulations, like say the village does, where you have to not increase the amount of runoff from a development,
Mhm.
from the pre-development conditions to the post-development conditions, is the general concept that's followed. So that in the township, if you do a development, you don't have to have a detention area or any of those things. That has been mostly successful, not always, because our houses have been so far apart.
Mhm.
As we build more and more, I start hearing about people talking about the neighbor's runoff going across my yard,
Mhm.
but they still have big enough yards that it hasn't been a complaint where someone comes stomping in here. We do know, and of course it was a very poorly designed development, but suppose Lamont and Carroll were a PUD with surrounding land, open space, they'd have, they would have terrible drainage problems. It's amazing that their septic systems even work out there. Now, that's not to say that we can't improve our regulations or our procedures to make sure that we cover those, but we haven't had to deal with that, and that's not in our code. The only concerns we've had are about interfering with existing tiles for farm drainage. And that's not actually in the code, that's just an accepted procedure.
Well, I'd like to recommend a compromise, and as I hope everyone knows, and for the benefit of the general public, the authority of the Township Trustees in these matters is either to accept the recommendation of the zoning commission, deny the recommendation of the zoning commission, or modify the recommendation of the zoning commission. And you may recall that it was the recommendation of the Greene County Regional Planning Coordinating Commission to, in this work, to accept the zoning commission's recommendations to remove R2 and R3 sections of the zoning code, and to send back to the planning commission PUD for them to rewrite it, to modify it to their liking. I would go a step further on that, and I would say, I would recommend modifying their recommendation to remove the two sections within the PUD for the business and the industrial portion of it, and to send it back to the zoning commission and have them work on rewriting the residential portion of it with perhaps advice from regional planning director Shoemaker as to what would be more to their liking.
So, you're saying, there are three parts to the recommendation, let's accept two and
Modify the.
send one back suggesting that it be modified.
You don't have to send it back, you can,
It's there,
yeah.
it remains. What's the difference between that and accepting all three and saying, we want a new improved plan unit development resolution?
May I address that? I think that would be acceptable, but I would encourage you, if you follow that route, to specify in some way, or make some bullet points, whatever it is, what you want the PUD chapter to accomplish.
Either,
Right,
I would
the
say
new
that
one.
in either,
Because the zoning commission talked at length about rewriting the chapter and couldn't figure out in their mind, in their perception of their job of making the code match the comprehensive plan, of how they would rewrite it. I mean, that discussion was there, that, you know, maybe we should just rewrite this chapter. The other thing is, and this is just, being honest, and the zoning commission agrees, it could be a long time before there's a new chapter.
That's
But
my reason.
but the old one stays in place with its possible risks and abuses, as well as its possible good uses.
Right, that's
But
my
if
reason.
they knew what the good parts were that need to be included, what's
That
the
seems-
minimum or maximum size of a PUD?
That seems to be their
Well, I know.
issue, not ours.
Well, but it's your
Well,
issue
I-
because you feel that something needs to be there. And so I'm just asking for some help from you who are saying, no, we want one. Well, what is it, what part of it is it that we want?
Okay, I'm saying
And go
something
that.
needs to be
That's-
there for two
I'm
reasons.
just asking for that.
For two reasons. One, because it exists, so I don't see a reason to take it out. And two, because we have a PUD zoning district in our zoning map, and I think it's ridiculous to have a zoning district without corresponding text.
Oh, that's no problem. A PUD is not a zone.
Oh, okay.
It's creating a new zone each time you put a PUD in.
Right.
So another PUD has a totally different set of rules. Each one is a distinct zone. So that, there's no problem with eliminating the chapter. No way it compromises Willowfields in any way.
Okay, well, I stand by my recommendation to modify the section. And if they either want to review it again or just leave it the way it is, that's fine with me. But still take out the industrial and the business portion of it. I'd be more comfortable with them looking at removing industrial and business section of the text and
Yeah.
changing the map.
We've talked about that, but for example, there's no way that you can eliminate Morris Bean.
Right.
They've got to have an industrial zone to exist. And that, we've looked, we're looking at business and industry right now, but it's not a case of not having any property zone.
Right.
Now, on the business, it might be possible that the three landowners that own business zone property could agree, but one of those actually has a business on it.
I understand.
So
Yeah.
it's a
You're
little,
right.
that's a little trickier, but no, in this overall review process, we are looking at those chapters.
Okay, good.
No two ways about it.
Excellent.
And, and it may be, the more appropriate situations in those may be to talk to property owners and ask them if they would consider any of the land that's not being used for business or industry to rezone, so that that we are not encouraging activities that probably we don't want to have happen.
Yeah, well, we have had property owners request a change.
Could I interrupt for a moment? Is there a carbon monoxide sensor in this room?
I'm feeling
Because I smell the
something
exhaust,
fumey.
and
Yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Well, it's not gonna help to open that door.
No,
Yeah.
well,
No.
It's not a turn
Gee,
the fans on.
gee, you.
We firehouse, I have big fans.
Anyway, back to the,
Where's our canary when we need it?
and maybe all of us. I have said my bit.
I said my bit. You got any more bit?
No.
Okay, I will make the motion that I am recommending to accept the first two recommendations from the zoning commission and modify the third by leaving the residential PUD and removing the business and industrial portion of it. So that's a motion. Do I hear a second?
I can't.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion regarding that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
My reason for wanting to leave it in is so it will get changed. But I think that there is advantage in having plan unit development option. And that if it's completely eliminated, I think it's less likely to get changed. The new improved is less likely to come back.
Okay,
Would you
and
be-
I will say, at least as long as I'm in my position, that if it is clear what the new improved needs to promote, it will get done.
Well, I'll take that on as a concern. I'm not saying that my opinion is what everyone else is gonna agree with. But I'll work on what would be changes in addition to just removing the industrial and business option of a PUD.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none, will you vote please?
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher?
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else for zoning?
Does that close the public hearing then?
We could close it.
It's up to you.
He's seeing no other public. Close it at 6:15. Moving right along, is there any new business this evening? Any
We
old business?
don't have our reports.
Not till next meeting.
Well, you already made my
No,
report.
we do have
basically.
a mileage thing to sign, but that's not a really business thing. We just, before you go, we need to sign that mileage
Oh,
thing for
yeah.
the county auditor.
I guess I would like to say something under new business.
Okay.
Too late.
I want to repeat what's already been said, that if we support, if, as an individual, we support the gas user fee, revenue increase of 18 cents a gallon, it's important to speak up.
I agree.
And that was the key thing that came out of the Transportation Advisory.
Speak up to us or to the powers that be in,
Well, to the,
in Columbus.
to legislators and in the press.
Got it.
Well, I will happily send this to our legislators. Okay, any old business this evening? Seems like we had some old business that maybe we took care of. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I was gonna say,
I'll second.
almost had to move that one. Okay, we're adjourned.